Hello and welcome to the Strategies for Success class of 2021. We're looking at supporting your child in history, and it is presented by me, Mr. McVitie. My email address is mcvitie@wyvernacademy.org. So to start, how is the curriculum in history arranged in Year 11? What are we going to be looking at this year? So in Year 11, we revised the three topics that we've already studied at the end of Year 9 and Year 10. Coming back in September, all the way through to February, we study 3-week blocks of each topic for that real depth of knowledge and going back over things to make sure that's really embedded. From February up until May, we then go to weekly studies of each topic, just so that we can fine-tune any areas that we think that we need to address. So what types of assessments are conducted in history in Year 11? Well, the History GCSE qualification normally consists of 2 papers. In paper 1, we look at Germany 1890 to 1945 and then Conflict and Tension 1919 to 1939. Paper 2, we look at Britain, Health and the People, which we normally call Medicine, and Elizabeth 1558 to 1603. However, due to COVID-19, AQA have said that we can drop one topic to make it slightly more fair because of obviously the knowledge lost. So what we've decided to do is, paper 1, we just study Conflict and Tension 1919 to 1939. Paper 2 stays exactly the same. We look at Britain, Health and the People, and Elizabeth 1558 to 1603. So aside from the questions that we practice in lessons, the major sets of assessments are the mocks. Now in November, we're going to look at all 3 topics. That's Medicine, Elizabeth, and Conflict and Tension. And then we do the exact same thing in February with all 3 topics. So what strategies can be put in place to support learning in history? Homework. Homework is a really important tool. So the homework that we use in history in Year 11 is historyhomework.com, and we set that once a week. This helps you recall key knowledge as well as quizzing you on your historical skills that you can use in lessons and your assessments. As well as this, we've given you a revision guide. We bought it for you in Year 10. Okay, please use your revision guide. You can use it for all sorts of revision techniques, make timelines, mind maps, question planning, or just have it next to you when you're practicing a question. Okay, use it to help you alongside your homework. Use this revision guide as much as you possibly can. What strategies could be used to improve the retention of knowledge in history? Okay, this is a really important one. There is a lot of knowledge in history, so retrieving that knowledge that you've already learnt is quite important. So create your own quizzes, use knowledge organisers, question yourself with true or false, multiple choice, odd one out. In particular, I would look at things like factors. What were the causes of events? What were the impacts and consequences of events? For example, World War II, what was the causes of World War II? Was it appeasement? Was it the failure of the League? Was it Hitler's aggression? It's also important to create a revision plan to cover the topics you need to cover. I would cover the least confident first and then go back over them again. Spread your learning out in small sections. So instead of looking at 5 hours revision, stick to 5 hours of 1-hour blocks. The key thing in history is to have an understanding of what we call the big picture. The best way of understanding history is that you are confident with this huge overview of how everything fits in together. It's important you have an understanding of the overall story before you start revising the real individual topics. To do this, create a timeline to identify the key events in a topic and colour code the themes. For us, medieval medicine, and then things like steps to World War II. Mapping out what you can remember about topics before you start. For example, the treatment of disease through time, or the Weimar Republic in 1919 to 1929 as part of conflict and tension. To do this, create a timeline to identify the key events in a topic and colour code the themes. For us, medieval medicine, and then things like steps to World War II. Mapping out what you can remember about topics before you start. For example, the treatment of disease through time, or the Weimar Republic in 1919 to 1929 as part of conflict and tension. So to put this all together, here's a quick video from Mr. Aspie using cue cards to show you how to revise things like key people for topics like medicine.
Here's a very basic revision technique that you could use. Okay, it's just a cue card, and you can have a cue card for every single key person that we look at in history across the different topics. So for this, we've got Andreas Vesalius, for example, and we've got key facts about him: that he proved Galen's use to be wrong by dissecting the human body and showed that they were different to animals, right? And I've put ST because that's a short-term significance. We also have wrote Fabric of the Human Body in 1543, and that was important because it spread knowledge, and again, that's short-term. I've also got down at the bottom here some additional facts about Vesalius, things like he was physician to Charles V, and that he proved the jaw was one bone because Galen thought it was two, and obviously other key facts about him there. Now, if we look over on the other side, I've also got long-term impact, which you will need for everybody in medicine. And we've got key things here, key reasons why long-term they are important. For example, then, if this came up on the paper, you'd be able to answer that because you'd know it needs 2 P paragraphs, one short-term, one long-term, and you would be able to plug in simply 1, he proved Galen wrong, short-term, and then long-term, he made the study of anatomy more scientific, and you would be able to get that from the information on your cue card.
So, links to study in history. So the first website I look at is senecalearning.com. Seneca Learning is an interactive website with lots of knowledge fillers, quizzes, online revision guides, videos, tests. Definitely check that out if you haven't done so already. Historyhomework.com is what we use for our weekly homework. Remember, with historyhomework.com, you can always resit a piece of homework. If you feel like there's a certain area that you would like to go over again, or you feel like you actually haven't done particularly well, you can always resit it and improve areas that you feel you need to build on. Sam Learning, very similar to Seneca Learning. There is lots of quizzes, word gaps and puzzles. And then the last one is GCSE Pod. We're quite familiar with GCSE Pod. Remember, it's really, really good for those short videos to summarise areas that you might want to just quickly go over. So, to summarise, there's some words of wisdom from me. There is a lot of content in history. There are so many dates, there's so many people, there's so many events. We've got so much to cover, and sometimes I can understand why sometimes it does feel slightly too much. But remember, we've done 3 topics. We've completely finished the 3 topics we need to look at. Knowledge is everything. I know it sounds really silly, but the more you know, the better you'll achieve. So remember, when you're doing your practice questions, if you are slightly stuck and you do start to panic a little bit, just remember to include that really specific knowledge. The more specific knowledge that you know, the better you'll achieve, I promise. And lastly, practice timing. I know it's difficult. I know sometimes you feel there is a lot to write, but the better that you are with the timing, the more efficient your writing can be. and the more room and time you'll have to fit in that specific knowledge. So thank you very much for listening. I really hope this has been useful, and just remember to keep going, keep revising, and you'll do brilliantly.